3 strikes is coming back because, as we know, it doesn't work, it serves no purpose, but it gives a good bumper sticker and it makes a government look like they are being hard or tough on crime. From TVNZ this evening.
The coalition government getting tough on crime.
Our goal here is to incarcerate violent offenders. I don't care whether they're Māori or non-Māori, they're coming off our streets. I make no apologies for putting in place this legislation because I think it's really important.
But it's not a new policy, rather a political tug of war. National introduced it in 2010, Labour scrapped it in 2022, only for Christopher Luxon and the ACT Party to revive it once more.
And that's getting serious, repetitive, recidivist, violent and sexual offenders off our streets and behind the bars.
But many argue it doesn't work.
I don't think you're going to come across it.
I like when they say many argue. Experts, academics, people who work in the industry, those kinds of
overseas experience.
Yeah, those kinds of randos. That there are one or two who don't think it works, like all the experts and the people who have done this before. Those people, you mean?
A defendant who stops and thinks, wait, if I commit this crime, I'm going to be liable for a 3rd strike.
The new revised legislation adding strangulation and suffocation to the offence list, while also offering a sentence discount of up to 20% for some early guilty pleas. The law will also only apply to sentences of more than 2 years after it was found some lower level offenders were getting unfairly caught up under the law.
Some cases came to be highlighted.
It's not good policy, and ultimately there's no evidence to suggest that it actually reduces violent offending.
In 2018,
So that's the problem, Mr. Hipkins. You have to remember, this government doesn't use, in fact, often plainly rejects the evidence. So that's where you're falling short. And as per usual, we will see that shortly again with Chloe Swarbrick and David Seymour. One does vibes, as Chiwilo says. The other one does research data and trial and error.
Justice Ministry report found that in the 8 years the law had been in force, it was having no obvious effects in reducing serious crimes.
So just remember, as we look at Christopher Luxon's O-face, New Zealand's research into when we've used it last time says it doesn't work. So it is a bunch of rando experts from around the world, but New Zealand, looking at when New Zealand did this, says it doesn't work. But of course,
what?
good bumper
8
sticker.
years.
Yeah.
8 years. So hardly a flash in the pan. And I would hazard a guess that our prison population probably ballooned around that time as well.
Right.
Because that seems to go hand in hand with every country that rolls out 3 strikes, their prison population explodes.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, we've seen different pieces of advice. There's been advice from previous examples of where...
Yeah, stutter. You know this team, we've said this before. When he stutters, he's getting caught up over not wanting to reveal the truth. Is he quite lying? I don't know, but he's trying to figure out a way around the obvious narrative to try and paint what he wants to say. So let's just have a look at that again, because what he's talking about is where the expert commentary is coming from.
Of advice. There's been advice from previous examples of where, when we had it before, and likewise we've even seen examples from overseas jurisdictions like California.
And does that advice specifically say that this will lead to a reduction in crime?
Let me
the advice that I've seen.
You gotta pass that hot potato.
That is cool.
Hot potato.
Even you'll appreciate this, Chewy. When we're talking about sports ball, that is called a hospital pass. We'll see it again, shall we?
A reduction in crime.
The advice that I've seen is that over the last 5 years, we've had over a 30% increase in serious violent crime in New Zealand.
That doesn't answer the question. So what you're saying is there's been an increase, but that doesn't answer the question as to whether there is going to be an increase. So
there has been an increase because everyone post-COVID is a little bit broken.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen it in the retail space. People get angrier quicker over smaller things. And I'm sure that's the case elsewhere as well. People get pissed off in traffic. It's just something we haven't dealt with before.
Yeah. No, 100%. Let's just give Mikey the last 30 seconds. And there's one other thing I want to add to this as well.
Is expected to capture between 45 and 90 extra prisoners each year at a cost of $11 million annually.
Well, that's not true, actually. It says that they're going to catch between 45 and 90 extra prisoners. No, because they would have been caught anyway. Because if you're getting caught to suffer the third strike, then you're caught. So it's not going to catch more people. It's going to punish harder the people on the third thing. So I'm pretty sure what Mikey just said there was wrong. Let me just go back. We'll give it, unless I misheard. Sounds like she was saying that there'd be more people caught. No, this won't catch more people. This will punish the ones that are being caught. Nothing in this legislation talks about how they're going to catch more people. Let's just check that again.
The legislation is expected to capture between 45 and 90 extra prisoners each year at a cost of
She said capture, not catch, meaning it's going to affect. I withdraw and apologise.
$11 million annually, a price the Prime Minister says is worth it in the interests of protecting victims.
We think we will be compliant with BORA and also with international human rights obligations, but that'll ultimately be a decision for the Attorney-General to see when legislation comes to the House.
Legislation that'll be sure to spark plenty of debate. Mikey Sherman.
So here's the other thing, Chewie. This is a little bit of a side note. I watched some of that press conference, and at one point, the Prime Minister was asked, now you check out this wording, right? I haven't got the clip, but I'll tell you what it is, and if I need to find it, I will. Was asked about cutting frontline staff, right? And about, you're not going to cut frontline staff. And the Prime Minister said, and I'm quoting him, and I can remember it, he said, no, it's not that we're not going to cut frontline staff, it's that we're not going to cut frontline services. So that's what he said in the press conference this afternoon, that it wasn't about staff, it was about services. So what that means, and we could look back to the more prison officers there's going to need to be for this, that they might just try and service the front line with fewer people. And it was very clear when he was asked about frontline staff, he says no, frontline services. So that's what the government's saying, and I think it's something we need to keep an eye on.
I think that goes hand in hand with the announcement from Customs today. Customs is going to be shedding some staff from border security. The very definition of our front line. I forget how many that they're cutting, but they're cutting staff from Customs.
Kia ora again, whānau. The clip you've just watched is brought to you today by our patrons. If you want to be a part of what we do, if you want to get behind what we're doing, if you're enjoying our content and wanting to share our content, then maybe you would consider being a patron to Big Hairy News. Head to www.patreon.com/Big Hairy News to sign up to one of our levels and be a patron. At this point, we are only a listener and viewer supported show. It all comes down to you guys. If you feel like jumping on board to help, then head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Hooroo.